It's June 21st, 2022, and I call this meeting to order. It is 6:33. And I will do the roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Villalobos is absent. Councilmember Bunker?
Here.
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Styler?
Here.
Councilmember McLeod?
Here.
Councilmember Clinton?
Here.
And I'm Mayor Glaze. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. And then if you would remain standing for the invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we praise you, Lord God, for just who you are and for your holiness. Lord God, we do lift up the families of the two men that were killed from the Maxwell Fire Department, Jonathan and Hunter Coco. Lord God, there's so much sadness today, but we just ask that you give the families the peace that only you can give them. And Lord God, as we go forward with our business tonight, we just ask that you keep your hand upon us and help us and guide us and just give us wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, yeah, let me explain. There were two firemen from Maxwell that were driving back on Highway 20, and someone pulled out in front of them and they rolled the fire truck. It was a grass brush truck, and I guess it was pretty heavy. And when it rolled, the men died. So they were brothers.
Oh.
Thank you. So we do have two public comments. I don't know which one was first. Oh, Mary Beth Harper, please.
Jared fixed this on. It's my size.
Adrian.
Yeah, Adrian, thank you, Adrian. Okay, anyway, this is information from the library. Okay, our librarians and volunteers have been real busy keeping up with all of these items here. Okay, the first one, the Martindale Community Library has partnered with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to provide a free book each month to any child under age 5 in Martindale zip code. The child's family registers for the program, and then the child gets an age-appropriate book in the mail. It's free. We're the only providers in Caldwell County. This is funded through, for 5 years, through a generous donation to the library. And it's been shown by research that children do better, social test scores, everything else, if they've been in this reading program. And this was in the May issue of the Bluebonnet Electric Co-op, showed Dolly and their inside here, so we're reading books. But anyway, the Martindale Library has is part of that, but nobody else in Caldwell County. Okay, second item, the library is also sponsoring some children's games for the carnival during the 4th of July weekend. We've got sponge toss, fishing booth, duck pond, and a few other things. Okay, sponge toss is so we could cool off. Third item, okay, the library and the River Cafe co-sponsoring the Downtown Movie Series each Thursday night. The Sandlot is the featured movie that starts off the July 4th weekend. Other upcoming movies include A League of Their Own, Karate Kid, Secondhand Lines, and if y'all know anything, Secondhand Lines was filmed here in Caldwell County.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There are a lot of things filmed in Caldwell County, something in Martindale too. Okay, the fourth item, the summer reading program is already up and running. There's an adult program, and McLeod, you can sign up for that.
Sure, why not?
We got cartoon books, so you can sign up for that.
Sure, no problem.
Get rude. Just sign up in the library, keep up with the number of minutes you read, and the top readers are going to win a prize in different age groups. So we're also planning a health and wellness fair on August 13th. We're working with Beth Beiser, Best Fit for You. Some of our vendors, these are all tentative though. Texas Physical Therapy, the Vaccine Action Collaborative. We're going to have free eye exams, blood pressure checks, and some other health-related things. Okay, now this is just some of the free activities sponsored by the library, and we're planning more events for this fall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dorothy Jo McGovern. All right. Good evening. My name is Dorothy Jo McGovern. I'm a citizen here in Martindale. I have been a homeowner now for 2.5 years and receiving bills from the city. And in that 2.5 years, I have had at least 3 to 4 disconnect notices due to my lack of payment on sewer and wastewater. So obviously when that happens, I've called Adrian and he's done an excellent job with me, helping me to resolve the problem. Unfortunately, it keeps happening. The situation he has explained to me is there's a double billing. So when I get my statement, I have 2 invoices. So basically it's as if I have 2 Houses?
2
houses, 2 water meters that I am being charged for. Both the charges are for different amounts. We're currently on auto draft, so the city automatically gets our money. And the last couple of months, the payments have not been applied to our statement. So now we are becoming in arrears and arrears and arrears. So my question and my reasoning for bringing it before the city is to make sure that y'all are aware that there is a problem. If there's anybody else who has been dealing with this, like I said, this has been going on since we became homeowners in December of 2019. Who is auditing this? Who is in charge of this?
Right now, no one's auditing it,
You have
and
to answer.
we're
You don't
working
have to
on
answer
that.
it.
Comment.
Yeah.
Oracle. Okay, then the next question is, who has the authority to write off these balances when I go in and I talk to Adrian and I say, Adrian, there's a problem, I have been double billed. All of a sudden, my statement is corrected and something is not right. So, truthfully, I'm concerned about other citizens not understanding and not realizing that they possibly are being double billed and are paying money. So who is keeping track of this accounting? That is my timer.
Is it the water company?
It is actually the sewer wastewater, not the waste. It is
But the
sewer.
water's
The
based,
utility
the water bill based on we determine our
Utility
sewer
department
bill
here
based
is
on
the
the water bill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could be a
Water
wrong,
usage.
it could be the Martindale water supply.
Adrian would be able to answer that.
Could be
Sorry,
the
that
water
question.
bill, Martindale
So
water.
my last thing I'm just gonna end with is from watching the firm back in the 1980s, when an individual or company puts a stamp on a bill knowing that it is incorrect and puts it through the United States postal system, it is a it's offense and a felony. So I suggest that the city look into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you contacted the water company,
The water company has nothing to do with the agent.
So just real quick, this is,
We'll
that
talk
was a
to
public
our-
comment. That was a
Yeah.
public comment. We can address this.
I've had issues with it.
They don't copy.
Sorry,
But we are working on the auditing stuff.
okay, I'll keep quiet.
Okay, we're gonna move on to reports. So in the packet is a flyer that went out in the utility billing on the 4th of July. So there is a downtown committee that's been working on this whole weekend of festivities. And a lot of that is falling on Katie and Ryan's shoulders to pull out all of these different bands that are going to be coming to town. I'm working on the parade. Tomorrow, Katie and I are going to be meeting so we can go over safety plans as far as closing the streets for the and for the parade. I'll be talking to Chief Ward about that. She's got, well, you can see it starts off with the library showing the sandlot, and that'll be in the green space over here. And on Saturday, she's working with Wendy and Craig Foster, and they're doing a bunch of games and things for like a carnival-like atmosphere, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And they'll have a couple of jumpy house castles, one with a slide. She's got 4 AC fans coming, I believe from Blue Bonnet, and 500 water bottles to help people not get too thirsty. They could drink stuff other than beer and soda. So we're hoping that that will last the whole weekend. The parade will be just like last year. We'll start on Northwest River Road. However, we're not going to try and go around the town twice. We're just going to go down Main Street, turn on Gonzalez Street, and then when it turns into Bowie, when Bowie gets to Lockhart, the parade will dissipate. Either they'll go back down Northwest River Road if they have a car down there, or just turn and go out on the highway. There's actually quite a few entries that come from out of town, so they may just go back to Lockhart or Prairie Lee or whatever. Are there any questions on the 4th of July parade? I'm not sure I can answer them, but I'll try.
How many volunteers?
We're still working that morning, and I have the Boy Scouts to call. I was out of town this last weekend, so I'm still working on that. Miss Harper is giving me the numbers to contact them.
Okay. If there's anybody out there that wants to volunteer, come see the mayor.
Yes, or Katie.
Yeah.
What about our fire hose competition?
I'll have to ask her. We didn't talk about
Ready
the
for
fire.
mud, I'm ready to work.
Okay. We'll propose that next year.
I had a question. You mentioned road closure
Yes.
of the Main Street during the music. Do you know about where the road will be closed, how the traffic will be rerouted?
Well, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, so I don't specifically know. She said that it's very similar to what she did last year. So maybe our city administrator can answer that if he remembers what she did last year. I don't.
So road closures likely will be controlling access along Lockhart Street near Main Street and controlling access into the downtown area from 1979. The specific intersections and the travel routes are going to be finalized. But generally, it's going to be restricted on Lockhart Street at some point.
And then I had a question about garbage cans, recycling. Will there be recycling garbage cans? And then also about porta potties and bathrooms.
I've ordered 5 porta potties that will go on the other side of Carlton's building here on Jennings Street. With that would come 10 of those frames and garbage bags. I haven't designated any as recycling, but we can do that. And then Katie and Ryan have a number of garbage cans. So I think we should be pretty covered with garbage cans.
And then have you considered sometimes at the porta potties, you can get a hand washing station? I don't know.
You know what?
think they come with it.
Do they come with that?
Oh,
Yeah, that's
okay.
something I hadn't specifically asked about.
I think that would be good considering cleanliness or.
Or we could get bottles of hand sanitizer also.
And then with the road closure, police are gonna monitor the movement of the traffic, or, I mean, are we putting up barricades, or, I mean, I'm
It's
just
gonna be part of
at
the safe, it's gonna be part of the safety plan.
Yeah.
what you're still gonna discuss.
In the past,
Wow.
we've used vehicles, barricades, other personnel. That'll all be finalized later.
They're gonna be detours.
Likely so.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're coming to the 4th of July parade, do not plan to drive into the downtown. You're probably parking within, maybe by the post office or by the park, or maybe the down across the park in the triangle green space lot that we have, or other options, so.
Has someone talked to Three Rivers Church about the possibility, or, I mean, if people park in this
Handicap.
parking lot?
That's handicap parking there. And also we had the children gather right there on the corner. So it's still kind of, we're still talking about that. The children will either be on Craig and Wendy's property or on the church property right there. So they'll be at the front of the parade.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions? Did you have a question?
What's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, continue talking about.
Oh, Katie and I are getting together to talk about the safety plan, like what we're talking about. And she said that it was going to be very similar to what she did last year for the anniversary,
Are you at the cafe?
probably. Okay, so both flyers are in there. So phase one is our park that's down by the bridge. And we had a workshop last night that was very good and was working out a number of things. But even before the workshop, Sam and I went down there, and when you actually see what's going on down there and how overused the park is getting, we realized we really have got to get a porta potty down here. And so we had one delivered on Monday morning. So that's what that is about. Phase one sanitation services is about getting that delivered to the park. And then we're going to be looking at ordering signs within the next few days. I've gotten a couple of quotes. Well, Sam's gotten one from Pathmark, and I went to Printing Solutions today. And we may be closing the park for about a week so that we can clean it up, get the road graded, try and get some signs in place. We've been talking to the police about enforcing curfews and things. There's nothing at phase one that tells them, hey, at 9 o'clock, you have to go home. The part, there's a thing in there that says, a photo in there from Alan Bates that needs cleaning up badly, that has the park rules, and it needs to be updated. It was put there a long time ago. And you can see from the photograph, it's got a lot of mildew and everything on it. And it's got the wrong ordinance chapter on it. So we have to update that. We'll be talking in the next couple of meetings about updating some of the park rules. The group last night in the workshop wanted to change the 8 a.m. to 7 a.m. But still leave it at 9 p.m. That's when the park can be open. So Sam and I have been working on that quite a bit. Are there any questions about that? We did so much last night. I don't want to repeat myself, but I know Nick hasn't really heard anything.
Catch up.
Okay,
I will say this, I've been on council since 18, that's the best workshop I've seen. It was very, very informative. Jared, give you credit, all those comments coming at you right and left on Zoom, I was pretty impressed. So there's a lot of good comments, and I think it's, a lot of the problems have been addressed that we need to address.
Everybody got to have a say on
Very well done.
what
So-
they needed to talk about. Okay, and that kind of covered the current state of Martindale Park signage. We did also address one area that is not a park, and that is the Skull Crossing area. So we also talked to our building official today about that, and he talked to Lanzola, and Lanzola is willing to, they're the owners of that parking lot that's been a public parking lot for years and years. They're willing to close that. We need to get better signage across the road next to the field. And then the police can start enforcing no parking. There's one little bitty sign there that Sam found in the weeds that said you can't, no parking, you can only pick up and drop off. Like, we're not gonna stop boats from, being picked up, or if canoes, people in canoes wanna put in or something like that. But we need to get some better signage down there and help Lanzola police that area and get
So
people
we-
to stop parking there.
So no parking at all,
Then we're gonna stop it,
just
all
for,
of
just for
it.
shuttles or just pickup.
Private
Mhm.
property.
It is private property, and they are going to have plans for that area in the future. So it might be time to just nip it in the bud. So,
Yeah, we talked a little bit about both of the roads going down to Skull Bridge and how one of them is privately owned and how the other one is a public street. And so we'll figure that out and differentiate, say, between those streets. Also, we talked about the signage there where we need to move the disposable can ban sign perhaps closer to the river, and then also put another sign that said private property closed. And then, I don't know if you could talk about the memorial or not.
well, that's still being talked about. There's a memorial for the two young men that died there, and so Lanzola is gonna have to deal with that. So there's not really much to say
Yeah, we have
about
to
it.
determine what they want to do, and perhaps they'll consult and talk
That's
with the
right.
family.
I was supposed to go find the name of the
Is it
mother.
not on the agenda?
Oh, yeah, it is. The current state of Martindale Park signage.
That's a part.
It's
It
it's
is not a
report.
park, but it was part of a lot of people think that it's a park. So this is going to be our way of addressing what to do down at the Skull Bridge.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean, and I'll just say one brief thing.
Not
I
on
think
the
that we
agenda.
were talking about the Skull Bridge because if we knew we were going to close off phase one, that we were concerned that increased amount of people then would be going to Allen Bates Park and be going to the Skull Bridge as a result of phase one being closed. So that's why we were concerned about the Skull Bridge and the activity going on there.
Can I add something? I've spoken to Tom Golan, and he is reaching out to those, I forgot their names, but the owners that bought John Skull's property. And he's gonna give us those contact details, and they could do something like, Texas Parks and Wildlife did. Use it for fishing or whatever, and address that issue. I think we need to bring them into the conversation, because they got a real issue over there on the Guadalupe side.
yes,
So he will-
they're really fighting, trying to
So-
keep people off their land.
So he will find those contact details, and maybe we can bring them in the conversation.
Okay, Jared,
Yeah.
financial report.
Yeah, so on behalf of Dwayne, I'll walk through the financial report. Anybody have any questions? We can discuss it. This is our bank balances from the general fund, our restricted street and road fund, court restricted funds, police training restricted funds, utility funds, other funding that we have set up in separate accounts. In the tax pool emergency fund, you see the balance there, 242,000. And in our PFIA fund, you can see where we have some our savings account essentially, in grant fundings and general fund, cash on hand overflow funds and other items. So Total PFIA, $533,000. Some of those have restricted use associated with them. The long-term capital improvement fund is shown at $95,000. Depending on when we receive a bill from the county, that will likely go down. And then the running total of what's due to the comptroller. Any questions on bank balances?
I had a question about the comptroller fines. I mean, I know that it's paid for by 20% of our sales tax and it's paid off on a monthly basis. Based on the amount that we're paying per month, it could take as much as 15 years to pay that balance off. Is there any way to accelerate those payments? Because I just think this is just an eyesore and it's something that we're constantly seeing. It's something that the city is constantly referring to. And I don't know if that has any bearing on bonds or rating or the reflection of how that looks upon us as a city to have this debt. Do you see any merits of accelerating the payments of this asset?
Other than the public perception that Martindale has outstanding debts or is a speed trap and those things, other than those public perception items, I don't see any financial benefit in accelerating our payments. It's a 0% loan.
That's exactly, 0%, that to me.
And so
No penalties, no
as
interest.
inflation continues to skyrocket and go up, even at a regular pace of inflation, we're kind of making money, if you will,
Yeah.
by paying it off slowly. Now, there has been a thought or a concern raised by, in the past, how long is our current payment period, agreement, arrangement last with the state? But I think it had every 10 years to revisit it. So, and that's probably coming up in the next 5 or so. I can't remember the exact date, but some point in the near-ish future, we'll have to go back to the state and renegotiate that. But
0,
for 0,
of course.
So
Okay. But I mean, as we get more sales tax from increased revenue from sales tax, then the 20% of that amount is possibly increased.
Oh, yeah. So in years prior, about 15 to 20,000 per year was paid off. Now we're looking 20 to 25,000 per year is being paid off, and that can continue to accelerate as the business climate in Martindale continues to be successful.
Thank you.
Moving on to the general fund balance statement. You'll see the net income. We are about 58% of the way through the fiscal year as of the end of April, which is covered in this report. You'll notice our total net income balances, 83. Property taxes are nearly caught up to budget. Those will continue to trickle in over the course of the next few months. And you can see the other income sources listed there. Any questions on the income side?
The municipal court revenue got 16,000, our budget's 60,000. We're over budget by 43.
Between October and April, the municipal court has generated nearly $17,000 in revenues. We projected in our budget of revenues at about 60,000 for the year. So we are only at 28% of our budget to date. So we have another $43,000 to collect to be balanced on that line item within our budget. It's possible that we could get there. We have another, I think this is through April, so another 5 months in the budget year to catch up. And now that we're staffed with 3 full-time officers, I could see that happen. So there may be a delayed effect because of ticket writing and then ticket payment. There's weeks and months between, but
Is the judge here tonight? Is he on?
no.
I mean, did they ever resolve balancing their?
And mostly to do with warnings.
Not citations.
In the expense category, personnel expenses were at 51.6% of our budget. So we're burning at this time 7% below our budget amount that time period. That will accelerate as we get through the remainder of the fiscal year, and we'll probably catch up by about the end with our increased hiring activities. Operating expenses of different sorts are listed. In total, we're at 47% of budget, so we're continuing to underburn there, which is good. Any questions thus far? Okay. Other contractual services and expenses. Down at the bottom, we'll see that we're overburning here. We're at 79%. That's burning quite hot from where we expect it to be. Now, there are some larger items that are paid off on a kind of fixed rate, if you will. Library contributions have already been paid out in full, not just half or near half. And street road maintenance out of the general fund portion has been maxed out. Now we're starting to use our sales tax restricted account for street road maintenance. So it's a little bit artificially high, and we've talked previously about the IT maintenance overburn that we've experienced this year.
Quick question, has the Caldwell County billed us for that overlay?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I mean, just to fill you in, I talked to Donald, he said that they will do a chip seal probably in September, so maybe they will bill us at that point, I don't know.
And then they're striping it after that, or is it striping
They won't
us?
strike.
Okay.
Just typically just gonna be a chip seal. And no, I don't stripe, that's gonna be on our budget, but dude, I don't see any striping anywhere else in town. Do we
Where are you
really?
saying this is?
I don't care.
On Lockhart Street.
Oh,
I don't see any, personally, I don't see any need of striping. Lockhart Street, we never had striped it before. This is my personal opinion. That's all. Professional fees. Is that the IT?
Let's see, what's the number on that?
The one up. 278 professional fees.
Professional fees. So these would include surveying and other fees that are for services that are covered under a state license of some kind.
We only budgeted 1,000 for that.
Right. We
Where
typically
is
haven't had budgets. Line item 8045.
Bringing our percentage up a lot. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's making us look a little bit exaggerated.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
78%.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
We also know we'll have to tell Kent to go on vacation for.
Yeah. Somebody got to pay for that. Somebody's got to pay for that bag over there.
On the uniform expense, 6650, I mean, I knew recently that we allocated more money for the purchase of protective gear. Was that a component of the 1,000 uniform expense, or did we allocate the funds from somewhere else?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
City council voted to
Yeah, that was
allocate
a line item.
18,000.
Still from my April.
You know,
This is an April report. I think that was after.
This is April report.
18,000. Thought they only needed 1,000.
Is that-
Oh, yeah, so you're looking at item 6650. Yeah,
Yeah.
the expense for that had not been realized. Recently, last month, got approval to spend that this month, so
Mhm.
you'll likely settle on next month.
And then I'm sorry, but I want to go back to 6012 workman's comp insurance, and it says 147%.
So that is paid off not on a monthly basis. I think it's quarterly or biannually. And it's based off the number of employees that we have. So our gross number of employees has increased. And given this value, if we have probably shouldn't have another payment, maybe one more.
I wouldn't even look at it. You should, but I wouldn't look at the percentage.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Vendor balance detail, these are the bills we're paying out. Any questions on these?
On 8060, I just wanted to point out the building inspection fees and stuff, code enforcement fees, has been higher than it's been in a long time.
Yes.
2,834.96.
Somewhat of a reflection of the number of permits that we've seen. Continuing on the vendor balance detail, they're provided there. If there's any questions, I can address those. Going on to the profit and loss for our utility fund. So you'll see our gross profit amounts for service fees and franchise fees, collections. We're about on track for the year. And then in our expenses, they're provided below in the different areas. And so if you have any questions, we can address them.
On this Michael Villapando, is that the mowing of Hobson?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so he's mowing that, it looks like quite frequently, let me see. Well, maybe not every couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's
1,
slowed
2,
down now.
We're saving money.
So you'll see the amount due and then the credit and then the amount due again.
Mhm.
And so there's only been really
1, 2.
three invoices, but 2 checks paid
Okay.
in the month. So it's not 5. And typically in the spring, our mowing activities are higher than in the summer.
Okay.
Any questions on the utility vendor balance or vendor details? You'll see those here. Any questions there? All right. Going down to our special revenue fund, these are the restricted accounts that are managed by fund. So you'll see a street and road sales tax, hotel tax, and then the different court restricted account items and our law enforcement training accounts. And so you can see that net income provided on that top portion. The key here is not to compare totals because they're each restricted in their own right. And then the expenses below. You'll see the expense for art programs coming out. Probably the June budget detail is probably part of a July council meeting report.
So we haven't been billed for the Lockhart Street Road yet.
No.
What qualifies a fund to become restricted? I mean, I had concerns about that in the past about the park fund, and when I don't use it by the end of the year, then it goes into the general
Who
fund.
doesn't use it?
When I don't have the ability, when, not me
The city.
personally, but I'm saying when the park fund has left over, then it goes into the general fund. What qualifies a certain fund to become?
So the general fund is discretionary. The city council can choose how to spend it. The utility fund is separate and is maintained as a business activity of the city, which is audited separately from the discretionary spending that's within the general fund. And then the special restricted fund has a legal requirement placed against its use. So in the case of the street and road sales tax fund, there was a ballot initiative that was passed that restricted the use of 20% of the sales taxes for street and road purposes. Hotel taxes use is restricted by state law, and the court restricted and law enforcement training are also similarly restricted at the state level. And we follow the state. So because there's a legal non-discretionary component to that spending, they're managed in a separate fund than the discretionary general fund. In an extreme hypothetical, the city council could elect to spend $300,000 on the park and not spend it on anything else, right? So that's what I mean by discretionary, not so much it's ability for city council to spend as they wish.
Okay.
All right. And then community development fund, this is where we manage our grant funding, the grant totals that you see here, I believe are reflective of the, I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't want to speak out of turn. The amount looks like it's related to the American Recovery Plan Act, but the notes on here are referencing Northwest River Road. So we'll have to delay any questions on that.
No, no question. I had some questions.
fine.
I'll delay. Ask some questions. I'll wait to.
I'll just give you wrong information by guessing.
Right.
And that's it. Oh, the vendor balance. There you go. You'll see the vendor balance out of it. Yeah, it's all, it's fun just being filled.
Oh, yeah, that's the 380 one over
Yeah.
here. That answered
Yeah.
that question.
Right. Because
That's it.
So we'll move to number 3, boards, Parks Advisory Board. So Adrian's going to handle that.
So, hi, everyone. I'll be just briefly, the Parks Advisory Board Chair resigned as a chair, but continues to be on the board. So I'll be reporting on behalf of the Parks Advisory Board. The meeting on 6/13, Monday of last week, the board collectively voted on to advise City Council to pursue grants for seeds. So I believe last year there was a wildflower seed grant they got for the city through the library for $500. However, because of inaction of it, planting the seeds, they had to give away the seeds, otherwise it would go bad. However, the city's Parks Advisory Board recommends City Council to direct city staff or amongst themselves to pursue this seed grant again for the beautification of the parks. Now, on the second item, about ongoing park ordinance violations at the park. However, some of it was addressed in the workshop yesterday, but in that meeting, they believe that the city council should advise our current police force to encourage or improve their surveillance throughout the daytime at our parks from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. and do about a minimum 3 checks per day to make sure that there's no ongoing violations at the park. And that's recommendation from the Parks Advisory Board.
Thanks. That's very good. Okay, we'll move on to new business. Number 4, rezoning along San Marcos State Highway 80. And we'll have Jared address that.
Yeah, so
I had a question. Do you think you could get the screen going? If maybe our assistant could plug that in? Our tall assistant.
Likes to be touched.
On?
Not yet. Oh,
Maybe you want to.
there we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Went to sleep on us, so had no signal. So the nature of this conversation is to get city council's feedback on a potential course of action. What we are not considering tonight is to officially rezone a portion of land. What's bringing this forward are two things. The first is in a prior city council workshop where we discussed planning and zoning last summer. We discussed potentially rezoning greater portions of Highway 80 into commercial. On the screen and your handouts, the zoning commercial is in green, mixed use is the orangish color, and then those are along Highway 80. We received an inquiry from a property owner who would like to engage in commercial activity that is not allowed within the mixed use zone, but would be allowed in a commercial zone. And in keeping with the prior city council workshop on this issue, where we discussed rezoning portions of Highway 80 into commercial, rather than going through a one-off rezoning application request, I want to first bring this up for city council's consideration to see if you would prefer city council to initiate the rezoning action and do so. That would trigger our zoning administrator, Lisa Shell-Allen, to go through the rezoning section of our ordinance. That includes, mailings, flyers, public hearings, yard signs, a pretty long, extensive process to get going on that. So want to get your take. Where we're looking at specifically of needing a kind of a head nod, go ahead, possibly a motion to direct the zoning administrator to initiate that zoning change request. Are those properties on the northwest edge of town, across from the Skyview subdevelopment, and those adjacent to the proposed or planned fire department building? So what we'd like the city council to consider for tonight is to consider at a minimum rezoning property IDs 45105, 45162, 28172. Basically 45105, and making it contiguous with the commercial zoning district that extends along Highway 80.
On
Where
both
the
sides
green
of
is?
Highway
Where the
80.
green is. So if you in mental map, you'll have, there's a family residence with a small business in the back that sells cakes and baked goods. And then you have the portion of Mr. Mudd's property, and then you'll have a portion of properties that have since been subdivided to some extent. You'll have the fire department building, and then there's 45015 to the open, and that's where the proposed development
Is that Jack Mudd's property?
He's either has or in the process of selling it,
Okay.
subdividing it and selling
That the 015
Yeah.
property. Okay.
That'd be the gas
And
station. right?
you're
Yeah,
just
so-
looking at that section, none of the other all the way
it.
to.
Well, the city council, if we want to, we could consider rezoning all that mixed use area into commercial, which is something we talked about previously. The one exception would be that those lots that are not fronting Highway 80 within the Skyview subdivision, those could continue to be zoned a variation of residential or mixed use.
What, if I may.
Yeah.
Why did we previously discuss it, turning that to commercial?
One of the issues that we have is mixed use, and mixed use provides a lot of leeway for developers to propose new innovative land use uses development. but it's geared towards pedestrian-centric activities. So the downtown area, and as the building across the street is being redeveloped, that is a classic mixed-use building where you have retail or restaurants at the bottom, living quarters at the top. Along Highway 80 does not lend itself well to being a pedestrian-friendly area. And so the recommendation I brought to City Council at the time was, let's consider rezoning that area commercial through and through, maybe on the north side of Highway 80, rezoning those a variation of residential, as residential is predominant use at that point now. So it's really that strip between Northwest River Road, Highway 80, and maybe some of the frontage areas on Skyview.
Right.
That's your question.
Yeah, that's good.
Lisa, do you have something?
And thank you, Councilmember Tyler. Just to give you a little bit of history, when the city was rezoned back in 2008, the purpose or the reason that that area was considered MU is because it didn't fit anything else. And so there were businesses and residents. And so that to me is, a little bit of, it's definitely time. It's been time for quite a while. And I just want to remind and make certain that we're aware that, it's not necessarily appropriate for us to discuss anyone's particular, is that so-and-so's property or is that such and such businesses, which is why we're going off PIDs, which is property identification numbers. And so,
So any existing residents that are there, if it is turned commercial,
which they would become non-conforming,
yeah.
meaning that they don't necessarily fit. So there are some things to be considered on both sides. The biggest question right now is residents themselves, or I should say property owners, have the ability to apply for a zoning change, maybe right in the middle of something that nothing else around it is like it. And so that's what's called spot zoning, which is greatly frowned upon, discouraged, absolutely. And so anyway, the property owner can go through the rezoning process, or the commission in this situation, which would be the Planning and Zoning Commission and or council, can go through the process. So that's what we feel like as in staff is the best approach. And what I'm personally looking for is, how far do you want to go? Starting with that very first, at the bottom of orange right there, starting at that very first section, how far do you want to consider changing to commercial?
Are we just doing this preemptively?
Yes.
Yes, and it's like I said, it is long overdue. And anyway, so let's leave it at that.
How does switching from multi-use to commercial affect the ability to, say, build living units or apartments along 80? And can we still build and say, because multi-use in the past, from what I understood, has been the ability to involve persons to live within the commercial structure that might be along there. We do have one house there, as you said, that is a house and they have cakes or whatever, but can we still have apartments on there if it's zoned commercial?
As according to our code, and if you wanted to pull that up for others to see, that would be appropriate. Or the use table is what I would search for. The code does not necessarily, the land use table. There we go. And so if we will look at the C1 that is on the right-hand side of the screen and then scroll down to where it has P. So bed and breakfast are permitted in commercial, as are boarding houses.
But
But multifamily, to your point, Sam.
Correct, is not. So an apartment complex would not, if in fact it was such that the council deemed it necessary at the time to, you could give a variance for that, or you could give I misspoke, you cannot give a variance for that. You could give a special exception or a specific use permit, like we've done with other projects. If in fact something was brought to the table and
Like we did with the Taco Feliz recently
Mhm.
regarding the drive-through
Right.
window.
So,
And if you recall, when that first came up, we approached city council about whether you'd want to pursue rezoning that area from mixed use to commercial. The decision at that time was to not do that. So instead, the property owner submitted application for a special use permit to have that drive-through window. So if the city council just chose not to consider proceeding with rezoning, likely what would happen is that property owner would submit a similar type of application and we similarly go through a hearing process.
So we're basically, you want to know how far we would be willing to go with this?
yes, and
And I think for me, I'd like to know, and I know you said you want to keep the information out of it.
well, we can use PIDs.
I would like to know which ones are residents, because we don't want to affect it. We want to
Certainly.
limit the residents.
So
Certainly.
in that area that's mixed use, you have a handful of residents here in this block of the Skyview neighborhood.
That's on the
You-
opposite side.
And then you have a couple of manufactured home living units
Mhm.
in this area. And that's basically it. And then the rest of mixed use is within Hobson Ranch and Butterfly
And
Meadows.
so Texaco can be a,
Texaco right now is grandfathered in as a non-conforming use.
right, okay, so it doesn't matter. So everything in that little strip in the middle is fine. Yeah, not so far east for you're going.
And you could choose to rezone what I'll refer to as the riverside of Highway 80 and not rezone the north side of Highway 80. And it is my opinion as staff to just be more mindful specifically of the statements that you've just made. You've got a lot more residential on that other side. It
But-
gives those property owners options by remaining the way that they are. But then at the same time, that is for you guys to decide. Yes,
But-
ma'am.
The residents won't even know that we're even considering this.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I
They
think
would
letters
be.
should go out. so that- And let them-
That all would happen afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if the city council says,
Well,
thanks for the bright idea, but no, thank you, don't want to do this, then we would do nothing. If the city council tonight says, yes, let's proceed with initiating that rezoning process, then we would send out the mailers.
Actually,
and, schedule public hearings and do the whole
Right.
shebang.
Jared, there's some real specifics in our code.
Right.
If you wanted to pull it up, which is 155.041, and I'm in section 3. Basically, once the council has decided that you are going to be the ones who would like to initiate a zoning change. So at that point, the zoning administrator, upon determining, that everything is complete, of course, then the process begins. A list, I would prepare the list from the tax appraisal and tax roll of all properties within 200 feet of every single parcel that you have considered or proposing to
Well-
change. Also, and this is pretty important for each of you to know, is that a determination will be a date of the next meeting of the commission, not less than 3 full weeks and not more than 7 full weeks from the date of the application. So at the point that you guys say, let's start it, is when I go through the process of getting letters ready, setting a date. And so it also says, and place a request on the agenda of the commission and schedule a public hearing thereon. Also then mail those letters. They have to be mailed 11 days in advance prior to the public hearing, as well as being posted in the newspaper, as well as of course, it has to be posted here. Then, at least 11 days before the hearing date, a legible sign shall be placed in front or in the front yard of the property adjacent to a street. The sign shall read zoning change request for this property. So we literally have to put a physical sign in the ground next to where the zoning change, to make it abundantly clear for all that would drive by.
And then all from that, there's two, not just one, but two public hearings. There's a public hearing by the commission and another public hearing by the city council.
So it also states that, that staff would prepare a statement for presentation at the public hearing that would contain no minimum of information bearing upon the request that may not be evident. Of course, we've talked about that before, as well as if there were any utility services that might be impacted, any kind of impacts on any of the properties that are being considered. Okay,
Can we get, so, that sounds like a lot of work for you,
but it's my job.
right? Absolutely,
For our standpoint, the work's going to happen regardless.
absolutely.
And we have a
So
choice
So
right
let's,
now.
let's figure out, let's get specific with what needs to be changed and do it one time, so you don't have to do all that
That is what,
multiple times.
that is the reason
I
that
don't know if that's gonna happen. I mean, you need that.
you have the opportunity based on our agenda item. You have the opportunity to select from this parcel number to this parcel number,
Mhm.
and then I go to work.
Yeah,
And so I will tell you that there are some things coming down the pike that will either require non-conforming. I mean, the work's going to happen one way or another.
For sure.
And this is an opportunity, and I like the notion of the commission and / the council having the ability to, the term I coined years ago, guided growth.
So one of the things to consider, so this is, the map on the right is the Caldwell County map. So there's been a subdivision, as I mentioned, there's a subdivision. Some of the property IDs might be a little different than what's on our zoning map that's published currently, because it hasn't not been updated yet. What I was going to point out though, is the dwellings that are within that proposed area of rezoning are only 2 property IDs. So while there are a number of residences, there's only 1 property.
that's just on the north side though.
Real quick. Fair statement is you want to have a more full and thorough understanding of what this looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions for you.
Yes, sir.
There are, under our code of ordinances, several parties that can make an application for zoning district. And one of those parties is the city council, correct?
Yes.
And if the city council votes to allow you to initiate the process,
Mhm.
begin a zoning change tonight, will that, in your opinion, effectuate a zoning change?
No, it does not.
Okay, now, here's my next question.
Thanks, Rosanna.
Will the city then be required to go through the process so that it can gather public information and input, and then ultimately, at some date in the future, be able to vote to either approve or deny the zoning change?
That's correct.
Okay.
So tonight, by being given information as to how much, would give me the opportunity to basically start the process, and whether it be present to you again, to start the application process. Once the application is quote complete, and we have to, whether,
So water.
That was someone accidentally unmuted and
oops,
unvideoed themselves.
I thought I understood that land many years ago was previously zone commercial and then it was switched to multi-use.
I cannot speak to that specifically, and I'm not discounting your question. However, it is not relevant to this particular discussion.
Yeah. Okay, so when did this become multi-use, you said in 2000?
2008, and
So-
it's not multi-use, it's mixed, whether it's the
Mixed,
same or
mixed
not.
use, okay.
So is there a way that we, if we say, what if we wanted to do everything that's mixed use right there minus the residential lots that we can avoid,
That puts you back into the situation of spot zoning,
right?
which is discouraged
Discouraged.
in the world of public
Okay.
And so-
That's
so-
crazy.
municipalities.
Because it's such a big process.
What I'd recommend is if we're going to leave behind anything that's not zoned into commercial,
Mhm.
that those areas that are currently residential, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 areas I'll mention in a second, that it'd be commercial or a version of residential, and there no longer be mixed use.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So in
Oh, and
the,
that's true, we could do
Yeah.
that.
in the,
Everything on the north side could
everything on the
become,
north side could
Wow.
become a version of residential.
it would be R2 because most of them are.
The one exception I would make is the properties on the south side, those are currently being used as residential areas. But it appears to me that it's multiple families renting on a single property.
The property owner would have that.
So let me throw one more thing in there, that on the north side, and I'm specifically talking
And so
about,
because it's not already subdivided, if that person were to sell, as an example, I think it'd probably be more value in selling it as a commercial space.
Yeah.
it would be, but I would like to draw your attention and let you know. So these parcels in this area, these two over there, so those are considered mixed use. However, that is a neighborhood that is predominantly manufactured housing. Now, also in our code, it states that depending on, I guess, the zone, if you wanted to change that from mixed use and zone it what it actually is, it would take away some freedoms, but it would also give some freedoms in the sense that,
There's some businesses, I think, on this,
Yeah.
this side, that you could consider zoning those into a commercial space.
Where's the childcare?
It's up in
That's-
Hobson Ranch
Yeah,
And that's mixed use,
currently.
but it's a commercial business.
it's considered a school, and a school can be in any zone, including R1 residential, which is what that basically is. Single, the rest of it, once you get back behind there, it's zoned R1 for single family and detached. It's considered R1.
Yeah, churches.
Daycare.
Daycare is permitted in commercial. Actually,
Yes, mixed use as well.
Oh, it's permitted in mixed use and commercial daycare. Oh.
Correct. And so, I look,
it might be one area where we could zone that area commercial as well,
So
or leave it.
So in an application, there's flexibility. You can refer to each individual property by parcel number and ultimately make the decision that you only want to rezone some of those parcels. So the city would not be wed to, but let's just say we identified 7 parcels tonight
Mhm.
and initiated an application.
Mhm.
Upon final vote, the city could ultimately vote to rezone 4, but not 3.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some leeway in how this shakes out, if it's what the council.
And that's not considered spot zoning?
No, it wouldn't be if it is contiguous and.
Oh,
It-
the
it-
parcels connecting would be
Correct.
contiguous.
Right, what you don't want to have is something that looks like a patchwork blanket or a Dalmatian.
Sure.
Hmm.
those are good examples. But if you bring up the map again, say, these here on this portion, if you elected, said, we really don't want to mess with those, but we want to do these, or we want to do these and these, but not this strip here. There has to be some sort of coherent look to it.
So let me tell you what has to happen prior to the application when the city initiates this type of zone or any kind of zoning change. So it says the zoning, and this is an IMN for anybody to know, chapter 155.041, section 2A. The zoning administrator shall have a map. This is upon application by the city. So that would be tonight, you would have the opportunity to say, we would like to consider it, therefore, we'd like to start the process, and we would like to see what it would look like from here to here on X amount of parcels, all right? So at that point, then I would have a map prepared to the appropriate scale, which shall show the owner of each tract within the area to be rezoned, as well as the current and proposed zoning district or districts of each tract. And the zoning administrator shall verify that the map is correct with respect to ownership and zoning district request for the mayor and commission chairperson as appropriate, as delineation of the existing proposed zoning districts shown therein. So at that point, it would have to come back to you, and then you say, thumbs up. At that point is when we consider the application complete, and then we start the next process. So what we are asking for tonight is for you to say either no way or let's try it out. Let's prepare a map with these parcels. Let's see how it impacts and or affects those property owners so that you can really, I understand that you have in your packet a very small section. It's not legible without a magnifying glass, but what we've had on the screen is, and anyway, and so I just wanted to make clear that those kinds of things, so any action tonight basically just says, let's move forward, let's check out these. When it comes back to you, because any kind of time clock, or as Jared refers to as a shot clock, that doesn't begin until the application is complete.
Do you have the ability to inform us of the reasoning behind this, what the prospective usage of this land is going to be? Why are we doing this?
Currently, there's only one property owner, but it's been discussed at previous workshops and things. And so because we're starting to receive inquiries, we figured that regardless of what's proposed or not, we would bring it to council and say, hey, we talked about this about a year ago. Is this something we want to do? Because now might be a good time to do it.
So you can't explicitly say what these commercial businesses are that they're looking to move in on that land?
So there is the inquiry we received was related to,
Which does not have a complete application.
no, it is related to a motor vehicle related business, which are not allowed in mixed use.
A motor vehicle related business.
So here you go.
And so it doesn't become public knowledge until that property owner's application is complete.
The automotive uses, so all these following automotive uses are not allowed within mixed use. There's no automotive use allowed. So, and many of these still require, if it's vehicle sales or repair shops or car wash or body shops, tire sales, would still need to come back and get a specific use permit for that activity. Others, such as part retail, oil change, minor oil change, and other items, those would have a permitted use outright. So based off of what it ends up being, would have to be looked back.
We've got two
Yes.
conversations going on here.
Third question? No, we're just figuring out exactly what's being.
Does that answer your question, Sam?
In a roundabout way, I guess.
And let me be specific without being specific.
I mean, it seems like we would really want to know what the requests are that are being proposed and why we're
Well,
changing. the
we
zoning.
wouldn't change the zoning just for one property.
Right.
At this time. We're talking about changing the zoning for a slew of properties. As an example, right now, if the Texaco caught fire, they would not be allowed to rebuild their gas station because it's currently a non-conforming use within.
Mixed
Mixed
use,
use.
and that makes Romano's too.
Yeah.
They have-
No.
Not Monos.
Are they already?
Restaurants are allowed. Automotive
Oh, that's right.
uses are not allowed in the mixed use area.
And
There was
so
a day
it's-
that location at Hermanos was a car dealership.
So
Well-
instead of,
That's something.
so instead of them having to go in and do this whole process when somebody comes and asks for it to be done,
Hmm.
they're just knocking it all out because people are gonna keep.
It's
it
going,
alive.
it's happening.
It's gonna
It would
Yeah.
be more of a blanket thing where we're
Yes.
saying, okay, we're
Yes.
just saying, this is where we want to have our commercial
Yes.
businesses.
Yes.
And that will be the area where which to me makes sense because
Yeah.
it's a high traffic zone there.
We don't want people living there.
And so we don't have to keep coming back and doing this over and over and over again.
So it's just
Right.
making, ultimately making her job easier, his job easier, our job easier.
And there could be in the near future, other areas. I do not want to get into other areas. This one, in my opinion, is imminent as far as applications coming in. But you as a council have the authority and the ability to look at everything
So-
and make adjustments
So
accordingly.
we were saying, me and Jan here were talking about pretty much the whole mixed use area besides that residential patch that is starting with 28472
All the way.
all the way down to
Three,
35977. So that whole,
On both
Well,
sides of 80 or just?
No.
no, just on the
No.
north side, just the north
Just on
side.
the
So there's
riverside.
339.
But I think 359,
It's just-
35977, that whole property should be commercial.
Yeah, no.
No, not all those little bitty properties. How many actual residents live on those properties?
Everything besides this. If we can look at the map and make sure that makes sense, that would be
Mhm.
ideal.
Mhm.
So excluding,
All those little tracks.
Now, why all those little tracks?
Yeah.
Because you think there's a mobile home on each one of those little
No,
tracks?
no, there's just a lot of,
Actually, they're building houses on
Yeah.
those.
Well, and that has to do with part of the code that if the mobile home or
schools
manufactured
right
house
there,
is
right?
taken out,
They've
And
gotta
that's all-
build a
they have to
house.
build a stick house. And that's part of the reason that
Yeah,
area
it's a School,
was included in the mixed
is
use.
that the church right there too?
Because
Yeah,
if it
that's
would
the
not have
Okay,
been, there
so
would have
everything-
been otherwise.
And the church is good, the church is
Well,
good.
Three.
Everything.
Possible for y'all
The
to
church
take
doesn't have to worry
turns
about it.
in speaking instead of.
Sorry.
Everybody's talking at once.
I'm trying to get this over with.
Just think about it.
All right, Mike, do you want the whole kit and caboodle, or do you want to leave off the
No,
parcel?
me personally, I like to have citizens input, that special use permit. I like the way Taco Felice was done. Plot by plot, we have a special use permit, then the citizens can be more involved.
But we're not gonna know what they want until they get a letter.
Well, I'm just saying,
You're given the.
to go a blanket change, first of all, we don't have Sonia here, and this is a big issue to me. I mean, we're doing some zone change. This has been, this,
Proposing it.
well, what I'm saying is, this is a big issue. And I kind of like the way we handle Taco Felice, special use permit. That way it's by particular lot. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
And I'm,
So that's,
respectfully, you will end up with spot zoning and
It's gonna turn.
and you want
a
every.
cluster of who
Well-
knows what kinds of entities, residents.
you're gonna waste a lot of time going through the beauty.
Yes.
I mean,
Going through this process.
you know,
I'd like to make a motion. Okay, I'd like to enter a motion to direct the zoning administrator to initiate the city-directed zoning change from mixed use to commercial for properties from 1984 to 3597
Could we see that?
along both sides of Highway 80.
Oh, both sides.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that last parcel number again.
Okay.
35977, okay.
The only reason I didn't like that is because of that, there are residentials in that continuous area, and they're just gonna have to come in here, and we're gonna have a process of them talking to us, saying, hey, we don't want this to happen.
Right.
Do we need a second?
Yes, we need a second before we can discuss.
Well, can you
Is there a
show
second,
us first?
just a minute,
I
is
think-
there
I
a
think-
second?
I think before we we need to clearly define all parcel
Well,
numbers.
before we can, we've had a motion, we need a second.
What, right,
So
but
35977 carries both sides of Highway 80. Beyond that, it's already zone commercial. So from the intersection of 1984,
All the way up
this is
to the very end of it.
the very end of it, that's where this starts.
So
And so
basically,
and you said both sides of Highway 80. Okay.
Okay, so we have a
That's
motion.
all-
If we
that's
don't
all-
get a
that's all
second.
of that mixed use area.
To commercial.
I second that motion.
Okay,
Okay, now we can discuss.
now we can
And
discuss.
what, and the reason why I would propose to do all of it, it's not too much work, but I mean, if it's gonna happen, and we'll get a response from the public. And once we gotta get a public, we can adjust this to where we go commercial from Highway 80 to say 28 to
when those parcels were zoned MU, those residents did come because it was a change. And specifically the ones that were on Highway 80 really were happy about it because it changed their potential future. You know, if we would like to, what I call pop a shop, then they could. So if it went to commercial, they can, but if they wanted to remove the manufactured house that's there currently,
It's not all
And-
manufactured house.
I'm just talking about the ones on 80. I mean, the ones facing 80.
That neighborhood's predominantly manufactured housing, but not complete.
Well, they're starting to build homes there though too. And the thing that I don't like about switching that to commercial is that eventually those homeowners in Skyview would probably prefer the option and think in the future that they can make more money and they'll sell the land to be commercial, but then that would impact the people that live behind there. And so you have the whole row of parcels of land there where you've got that orange swipe through there. The other ones in Skyview on the front side of A80 could potentially decide to sell it because it's zone commercial, and then thus those homeowners in the orange swipe would then be backing up along commercial
A
businesses.
couple of things I do want to bring to your attention is that as a motion and a second has been made for this proposal, that triggers me with the ability to have a proposed map for each of us that you can actually see. And it would be on, you know, a future agenda pretty quickly, I would
I
expect.
think we want a second motion to request the zoning administrator to
Agreed.
present it. Because currently, right now with the ordinance, either the chairman or the mayor could sign off on it. If the recommendation is that the city council review it prior to proceeding with closing the application, I think that should be a separate motion. If that's
Don't we
something
have to
that.
vote on the first one first?
Right.
Upon application by council, the zoning administrator shall have a map prepared. So I mean, effectively, this is, the question is, if this motion passes, does it in fact constitute the council's application to the zoning
It
administrator?
does not.
It initiates the application.
After,
And then it's not complete until the map is created.
correct. And then you also then say, you know what? Either put this one on or take this one off. If you so choose to readjust, or you like it exactly the way it is. And at that point, a second motion would need to be presented and of course seconded and passed for me to move forward with notifying. The public is going to be aware because our meetings are public. But there would be no signage, there would be no letters, just for you to be able to have a visual of what it might look like. I can have maps prepared that are overlays where the zoning map that's in your handout or in your packet, all you see is just areas. It could be prepared in a, like a GIS type of, where it's an overlay of like a Google map. So you can literally physically see what is in this spot right here versus over there.
So Ken, my reference was related to within C processing upon application by city council to be.
Right.
So,
um,
so we need to do the math first.
The map is created, then
That's what your motion was.
So the application,
No.
So it's with,
To
on,
initiate city directing zoning change.
go back, application by council, go down to 3. So A and B is what you just,
the question I'm presenting to Kent is
Okay.
whether we need possibly a secondary motion regarding the approval of the proposed map, which is 2B.
so the application is, that may be made by the council. And an application shall contain the following information: name, mailing address, contact info, number of the property owners. Are there any fact, well, I mean, we got that.
Yeah.
Lisa knows who the applicants are. The legal description, street mailing address, of any of the property which rezoning is requested. We're establishing that tonight. And then
that's past where we are.
the application must contain the current zoning districts. I mean, so effectively, Lisa has all of the information under B 1 and 2, which takes us down to C. So effectively, what happens is if the council said, tell me where you think we're on.
Okay, so if you will look at 2, upon application by the council, what is being considered tonight is A and B. That is when that is when the map would get prepared. On 3 is when the zoning administrator, upon determining that the application is complete, which I would not do that until you have said we're.
So
This needs to be rethought out a little bit
you're
more.
off just a little bit.
Go ahead.
All right, so 155041A is the initiation of application. What is tonight is A4. Or, or by the council, or I'm sorry, A5. Council may initiate a change in zoning. Council should provide zoning administrator with sufficient instructions to initiate the application, including accurate determination of the area which is desired for rezoning, which is tonight. That's what we're doing here. Then the application will be completed by the zoning administrator, all of section B, legal names, current zoning districts, etc. Once that's done, the further processing for an application that's done by council is C2. Under C2, that's where we prepare a map. The issue in question that's come up is if the council is putting a condition on whether to proceed with processing with the application on viewing the map, right now, that's not a requirement under our ordinance. Only the mayor or the chairperson is required to review it. The whole council wants to review that map prior to proceeding further, then that, I think, needs to be
A separate motion.
a separate motion.
I would-
All right, do you understand that?
Go ahead, I mean,
Do you understand?
I understand everything, Ms. Jan, so go ahead.
Do you understand
Yeah.
it? I don't.
I would much rather see the zoning change on the south side of 80 and not on the north side of 80, because the motion has been made. It appears to be on both sides of 80, and I think that, well, it's going to impact Skyview whether or not we do the north side or the south side, because if we're saying we're changing it to commercial on the south side of 80, then these auto type facilities that are possibly being considered there are going to impact them anyway.
Yeah.
In the future. So if we're looking to the future and saying, yes, we're going to have commercial on both sides of the highway, then that's it. But there's also other residential components on the north side of 80 there. You've got Hobson Ranch, you've got a lot. And so I would prefer to see it as just being on the south side of 80, but
The motion is for both. though.
I know, but I'm saying because of the heavy impacts it's gonna place on the residential areas of Skyview where people have mobile homes there and they've already built homes there. And so who knows, in 20 years?
You don't have to
We
vote
got,
for
we
this
got a motion, so we got a motion.
Okay.
For a vote.
If I may for just a moment, it is possible that that Councilmember Bunker, who made the motion, could
amended.
amend, thank you, the motion that you might
But
want to
that's
see.
not what I want.
I'm just giving
Okay, we'll
out
just put it to vote.
information. You could say, I want to see both. I want
Put
to
it to vote.
see,
See what you got.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jan made the motion, Nick seconded it. Mike, how do you vote?
Nay.
Sam, how do you vote?
No.
You're the tiebreaker.
Guys,
So it's up.
this is the first time.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Buy you a Coke afterwards.
There you go.
to be clear that all of this is creating a map. That's all that's happening.
I know, I'm gonna have to vote no.
Okay.
I'd like to see it just on the south side also.
So if someone wants to make another motion, they may.
I'd say.
Or if there's no other motion, then we move on.
Somebody could second.
I would consider another motion being made.
I would rather all of
Well, I mean, either way, it's gonna come back to council and we need to review it again with full council, so.
Okay, then I'll make a motion then. I make a motion that the consideration of changing multi-use to commercial. South side of the highway.
From where to where?
Look at the motion written down here and then say properties to be determined. You tell them what properties you want.
On page
On page
18,
18.
page 18, keep going to your right.
Right here.
Okay, sorry. Well, it says to rezoning portions.
This is your motion.
Oh,
And then when you get to properties, to be determined, TBD, then you tell where on the map you want.
okay, I would like to enter a motion to direct the zoning administrator to initiate a city-directed zoning change from multi-use to commercial for properties to be determined along Highway 80,
Which are
which are
the ones you determined.
the areas of,
Are you looking at Moon Circle or where?
this,
Or from there, the whole?
from
site?
1984 all the way down along to the bottom. What's the bottom?
35977. There you go.
Right.
35977.
from 1984 to 35977.
Well,
On the
this-
south
Okay, we
side.
have a
Remember
motion.
though, 35977 is on both sides.
That doesn't
Doesn't
necessarily,
matter.
no, because they're. These-
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a
I
second?
second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mike, how do you vote?
Nay.
Jan, how do you
Nay.
vote? Oh, here we go again.
And what
Two
did you
votes
say?
now.
Two.
You said no?
I say yes.
Oh,
He seconds.
Second.
So it's,
I say yes.
You got it. There you go. Done.
Oh, you're the tiebreaker.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you, council.
well, that's a start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have a question? Does that mean that 35977, if you change it, that's gonna be on both sides?
No.
No, that's what we
Only on
just
one side, even
voted.
though that property encompasses both sides, it would only be half of the property. Just clarify, thank you for your explanation. Appreciate
There's a
it.
lot of properties that are more than one.
I understand, you kind of got a little gray quickly there, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We will move on to item number 5, to amend the current meeting schedule of the Martindale regular city council meetings, which is now, of course, on Tuesday nights, to the first and third Thursday of every month. And let me explain why I'm requesting this. Jared's here on Mondays and he gets a lot of work done on Mondays. And we have to get the agenda done 3 days in advance of the meeting. So if we get that posted by 6:30 on Monday night, we can meet on Thursday night at 6:30.
You get input from more.
Yeah, we
people.
get more input from the city manager and everybody's here on Monday, pretty much. The building official, the zoning administrator, everybody's here. So if we have to ask questions or get information or read aheads, then they're here and we don't have to make continuous phone calls. Adrian works very hard to get that agenda done. And so we're kind of hoping that, so what I did first was, Jared and I talked about it, and then we talked to our city attorney to make sure that he could come. I don't think I checked with everybody, but, so now we're just asking that,
We
I'm-
discussed this at the
Yeah, we
city
did.
council.
Yeah, we did.
yeah.
I think we're all good with it.
So if someone would like to make a motion to move the meetings, I would really enjoy that.
I'll make a motion to amend the current meeting schedule of Martindale's regular city council meeting. To move, from the meeting, move to the every first and third Thursday of each month.
A second.
Jan, second. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion about that?
real quick point out, the effective date on the resolution is August 5th. That would be the first
Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay.
The part of that was, we wanted to make sure we provided sufficient public announcement. And one of the ways that we do that is through our mailers under the utility billing. So this will allow us to get on to utility billing in July.
So the first Thursday will be
August
August
5th.
23rd.
August,
August 5th.
Oh, August 5th.
That's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Jan, how do you vote?
Oh, wait,
I second.
one quick discussion about that is that the only thing, and it's not a major impact, is that generally they do have music on Thursday. I'm just saying, they have music on Thursday and Friday night. And we will be impacted by music noise from the music because that's all I'm saying is that because generally on Tuesday, it's not a heavy music night, but we will have increased presence of people here, traffic and live music on Thursday nights. That's just an observation.
Good observation.
Yes.
Maybe people will get more involved.
Quick recommendation, and possibly, I think there should be an amendment instead of August 5th, should say August 4th.
Oh, is that the Thursday? Okay, so we need to change that.
Oh,
Good, that's good. Yes, sir. Well, that's why I wrote this. Good job, Steve. You're on top.
It went through me though. I should have caught it earlier.
Used to it.
I make a motion to amend my previous statement, from August, I didn't even say, effective date starting on August 4th.
Okay.
And I second. I don't know if you need to.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay, Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Okay, and the last item is discuss scheduling to arrange a budget workshop or shops for fiscal year 2023. And that's for Jared.
Yeah, so coming up through the budget setting season, it really starts in earnest at the end of July. Is kind of where we start getting to deadlines. So it, I think behoove us to get ahead in front of those deadlines as soon as possible. They drafted a budget, the mayor, and she's reviewing it, but I would expect us to have a draft ready for city council as early as next week. And so at this point, just looking for recommendations on a date and time or preference to hold a workshop on the budget, either during the next council meeting or on a specially called meeting. So we'll get your availability.
And what are those deadlines that you?
So
They're in the packet.
the deadlines start coming. Cities our size, the appraiser, it depends on what tax rate we choose to go with. If we use a tax rate that our property tax rate that increases our revenues more than 3.5% as calculated per the state law, we would have to go forward with an election for that approved tax rate. The current draft that we're working off of does not include a rate that is expected to exceed those revenues thresholds. But if the city council would want to consider that, we most surely would need to have that decision made early in July so that the chief appraiser could certify their estimates accordingly. So really, it's the handout that's included with the agenda is that has the dates published by TML regarding when things need to be filed. Some of it is simplified because we collect less than 500,000 in total property taxes, but using the TML guidance for budget setting timelines, we typically try to follow. So
we have to have a budget done and accepted by August 29th,
No, September 29th.
September 20th.
the August 7th, city council has to be presented with the tax rate information. That's in my mind, that's more of a formality. If we're going to go through a tax rate increase that would trigger an election, we likely would want to do that earlier than that deadline date, so that we can prepare the election materials. Everything within this guidance is to adopt the budget on the last day of September. Adopting a budget requires public hearings, notices, and as we've noticed with our planning and zoning activities, sometimes things get screwed up, even if it's none of our fault. Sometimes it's our fault. But what I don't want to do is plan to adopt a budget on September 29th. Instead, I plan to adopt a budget, say September 1st or thereof. So if August 7th is kind of like the deadline to say, let's figure out our tax rate information, let's bring that also a month ahead. And so maybe by July 7th, we start considering what our tax rates need to be.
To do it on Thursday prior. Or
Well, there's a
Tuesday prior.
suggesting,
We can meet next, as early as next Tuesday. If we met next Tuesday, I likely would not have a read ahead of the budget presented to you in time because Mayor and I wouldn't have had a chance to discuss it together. But if we set a meeting for Monday for
12?
next,
special meeting on the 12th.
you know, either the 30th or I have a slight, I have family visiting that day, but we can make it work.
Do you want it on a Saturday?
No. I was looking at sometime, the earliest I would propose doing this is June 30th. The latest I would propose doing it is, say, July 8th. So somewhere in that, we have 4th of July baked into there. We also have currently a planned city council meeting for July 5th that has not been rescheduled or canceled yet. So we could plan to do it as part of that.
We could do it an hour before.
The July 5th and just have that be the entire meeting.
I'll be gone too.
On July 5th.
What about July 7th?
I'm gone my whole week.
I'm saying.
Y'all don't need me, but I'll be gone too.
There you go. There's three. That's a-
If we're into the week of July, we could hold this during the workday as a workshop setting. I know that in the past it wasn't available to us with
Sonia,
Sonia, but I wonder,
she's on summer
She's summer break.
vacation.
she's on vacation, whether we might be able to do it during regular business hours on Monday, July 11th.
11th.
Well, when you're here, you were proposing July 27th.
So that's,
But you won't have anything prepared.
We weren't, yeah, we're
we
not going
could,
to be
we could do
ready.
something as early as the 28th, but you won't be able to attend that meeting with the benefit of a read ahead.
I like the 11th, if we can make that happen.
It worked for me.
It works for me.
That seems better for me too.
Get
So
some time.
we
All
can-
right, I'd like to make a motion to schedule a budget setting workshop for fiscal year 2023 on July 11th at
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Now, are you working? So we'll make it at 5:30 p.m.
Can we do it later?
Yes,
Yeah, that's better for me.
5:30?
I gotta pay some bills.
Yeah. Okay.
Jared, will that work for you?
Yeah, I can make.
What time?
5:30. And, you know, Sonia, doesn't she work too? She still
No,
works?
she's on summer break.
No, she still works.
Oh, is she?
If for some reason,
Yeah.
we'll reach out to her and see if that works, and if it
If not,
we'll, Mayor can call an election, or not election, call a meeting.
Meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Jan made a motion. Is there a second?
That's
I
five,
second.
Okay, Nick.
And that was the 11th at 5:30, right?
Mhm. It's in there.
Budget.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Sam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. Is there any more that you need to talk about that, Jared? Okay, so the next item, I want to make very clear that Jared himself called this executive session. None of us are unhappy with him or calling to have a performance review. However, I would like to move this performance review to a later date because I feel that we are not, it was just kind of brought out just last Saturday. And I don't feel that I'm prepared to do a performance review at this time.
Is that a line item on the agenda?
Yes, it's number
It's
7.
executive.
The third page.
We're going to go into
Page
executive
3.
session and so we can ask you questions that like why you wanted to do this or do you want to do it out here in public? Do you want to do it
I would prefer to have the discussion in the executive session.
Okay. All
Do
right.
we need
I
to
would
have, do we have an
prefer to
executive?
move it to another time so that we can get
Well, I
a
think
framework.
I would agree. I think I agree with you. I mean, we don't have a format.
We don't have any,
How,
I'd like
I mean, just gonna.
anything to
Yeah, we won't
critique.
do evaluation, but I have questions for you. Just a real quick 5-minute executive session, if y'all don't mind.
We can. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Please honor
Okay.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, so it is 8:23. Okay, so it is now 9:04 PM and we are back in regular session. And so we had a performance evaluation and discussion of Jared Annable, our city administrator. And what else should I say about that? He's a good administrator and we're just gonna keep on doing what we're doing, so. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna move on to future items. I have one item to add to the list, and that is possibly combining the parks and the river advisory boards. We have discussed that a little bit. And yeah, we're having trouble with the Parks Board, so.
How many
Anyway.
on that, how many would be on that committee? If you-
Well, we'll have to work all that out. When we bring it up at the next meeting, the question will be, should we do that?
Okay.
Not how we do it, but should we do
Okay.
it?
And also, we can kind of come up with a changed ordinance. if somebody really
Yeah.
wants to do it.
We would have to rewrite. Do you have anything else to add to the list?
Well, aren't we going to discuss about the parks and changing the ordinances for the park in order to facilitate the production of these signs that we
Yeah.
have to discuss that in
Yes.
order to make.
That's item
it.
Parks.
That Ordinances.
Okay, so it's on there.
Yeah, parks.
What about the, well, I guess later we'll talk about dilapidated homes and how we're going to proceed through those.
Leave
Yeah,
or
our
You can get an
building
update,
and,
after this meeting, personally, one-on-one, if you have a specific question.
Okay.
You
No,
can come
no, I
in and
just
ask
knew
Lee.
that
he
that's
said.
something that we have been talking about and working, so that's fine. But we will be talking about the ordinances of the parks in order to make the signs next week.
yeah, we can do that without.
But then in order for you to make a proclamation to close the park down, does the city council need to get involved in that? Or is that just something that the mayor does
I think the mayor can do that on our own.
on
Yeah.
her own? Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye,
All opposed?
done.
All opposed?
Any opposed?